Hi everybody, welcome back. I have made a video before about how to use the app Procreate, but I kind of just wanted to go through my process of making digital art. I've been making more digital art recently. I recently finished this little drawing, which took me like a good chunk of time. I turned it into a print and you can purchase it on my website if you like it. But it made me kind of inspired to work more digitally. I also recently made this, and a customizable print for this is also on my website right now. And I was working on a little Mexican food version of that, and so I just thought I would kind of go into what my process is for making digital art and how I don't know, the little tips and tricks that I have for using an iPad to make digital art. So I think the first thing that I would recommend is learning about the different paper textures that you can import into Procreate. I feel like they make things look a little bit more, I don't know, like hand-drawn and less perfect. So this has a paper texture on it, and you could see the difference of everything without the paper texture. So in this portrait, it has like a linen texture, and without it, it just looks so smooth and like perfect. And with the linen texture, it just makes it a little bit more visually interesting, a little bit more painterly. So I would recommend having like a little array of different options that you can use. So I have one that's linen texture. I have a watercolor paper, this like cardboard texture. And so the way that I do all of these, I go to unsplash.com, and then you search in the search bar paper, and you go through here and you have to find the ones that aren't locked, but a lot of them aren't locked. So for example, this one isn't. You can press the little download button. It'll be up here. And then you can save that image. Go back to Procreate, add a new canvas. Make sure that in the canvas, you're going to go to the settings. Make sure that the DPI is at least 300 and it's a size that you like. And then you're going to add a photo. Click on the photo that you want to add, the paper texture, and make it the correct size to fit. Then you're going to want to go to the Adjustments tab, go to Hue and Saturation, put the saturation all the way down. For the layer that you added the photo, you're going to press the little N, and in this list, you're going to put it on Multiply, and this will kind of blend everything together. You're going to add a layer and put it in between the background color and the paper texture. So what that does is that when you draw, it puts the drawing underneath the texture. If the drawing layer is on top of the paper texture, it looks cartoony. It looks like it's not meshed together. So the brushes that I use the most are the Max U Gouache Flow brush from this Retro Max pack. I use this one most often, and I use the Gouache Flow Detail brush. Those are the things that I mainly use, and then if I'm making like art for YouTube, if I'm making like a thumbnail or something, this is the round brush. All I did like duplicate it, and all that I did was in the stabilization, I added a lot more stabilization so that it doesn't like shake as much when you're drawing with it. And this is very helpful for like lettering and things like that. So those are the brushes that I use the most, mainly those first two. So let's make a little piece of art together. I'm gonna use the watercolor paper. So let's make another cute little painting. I made this on TikTok and I filmed the process and then I printed it out. And I love the way it turned out. I love the texture that gets printed, and I want to make something similar like this to sell in my shop. I was looking around for some inspiration, and in my apartment I have these maraschino cherries, and I love the label of these. So I'm going to turn this into a little drawing. So I usually do a sketching layer with the 6B pencil. I'm going to just sketch out what this looks like. I think I am gonna go this way. I do love the fact that with digital drawing, you can make so many layers that you just keep trying to perfect the thing. Like, it takes a lot of pressure off than drawing in traditional artwork. Like, this is all crooked and I can fix that later on. I'm going to put on the drawing guide, and that can show how off my lines are. And then I'm going to put this little arrow on and press warp. And I'm going to try to fix my lines a little bit. All right, that looks pretty good to me. I'm going to turn that drawing guide off. And now I'm going to press this N, make the opacity much less. And I'm going to add a little layer on top of it. Now we're going to make a cleaner design on top. And I'm not going to pick black, even though I can change this later on. I think I'm going to draw it in like a maroon color. So let's get to drawing. I'm also using, I don't know if I said this, the Max Flow Detail. Whenever I want something to be perfect, I add a drawing guide onto it. And I need to edit this drawing guide so that the grid size matches the square that I'm trying to make. So I'm gonna make it a little smaller. Okay, like that. Hope that made sense. So now that the grid size is smaller, I can like follow the lines of it. Does that make sense? I'm just gonna make them more straight. Let's color this in, and then we will add some of the details back. I am going to take away that first sketchy layer. I'm gonna add another layer and put it underneath our line work. And then I'm gonna go to the gouache flow brush, and I'm gonna start coloring in. I do wanna stick closely to the original colors because I want it to be recognizable. I'm just gonna change all of the words so that it's not like branded. Okay, so now that the main color is filled in, I am going to add some details because I don't want it to look like cartoony. I just want it to look like it's a painting still. And so I'm gonna add some lightness and darkness and some, shines on the jar and shadows of the jar, and then we'll work on the details of the label. So I'm gonna work on that next. I'm using the same two brushes for all of this, but I am separating everything into layers. So I'm gonna do another layer on top of this one. And for starters, I'm going to work on the top of the lid. So when I'm doing this, I'm just trying to add enough color differentiation so that it looks a little bit less cartoony, but this is not like hyper realistic by any means. You could see that I kind of just block in large areas of color and give it some dimension by adding some shadows. So when I want to duplicate something so I don't have to draw it again, I'll go into the selection tool and then select the drawing that you want. Make sure it's on a separate layer when you're drawing it. and make sure you're on freehand. Then press copy and paste. It will duplicate it, and you're going to take that second layer and put it where you'd like. That's a lot of the details. Now I'm just gonna do my little lettering. With the lettering, you should put a drawing guide on so that you can make sure you're doing it straight. So this is off center, and so I'm gonna select it the same way I did before. Press the arrow, and then you should have on snapping, and then I can tell you where the center is. Okay, so now I really just have to think of something creative to put in the labels, and then we're gonna add like a shine down the middle, and then we'll be done. Okay, I played around, and I think I'm just gonna do this because if you've ever had Luxardo cherries, they are very addicting. They're like dessert and so delicious. So I put beware fancy addicting cherries. I might change this, but for right now, this is what I could come up with. I did it on like a line art layer. I'm gonna make the opacity much less. I'm going to put the drawing guide back on, and I'm gonna make a new line art layer. So that's obviously a little bit too big. I'm gonna press the selection tool and make it the right size that I want and put it in the middle. And then I'm going to duplicate that layer so that it's a lot more white because this pen is a little bit transparent. And then I put those two layers together. Now when I take away the other sketch line, it looks a lot more crisp. So I'm just gonna do the final touches. I'm gonna make, because there's like a shine right here, I'm gonna make the middle of the yellow label a little bit lighter. Same thing with the reds, a little bit lighter, and then do a white little shine throughout. I'm gonna select the color I used before and just do a lighter version of it. Make sure I'm on the gouache flow brush. And that is pretty much how I make a digital painting. I will put a little digital version here so that you can see how it turns out. But that's all of the little steps that I use, the tips and tricks, and I hope you enjoyed. I hope you enjoyed watching this video, and I hope you come back next week for more art-related content.